Oh, geez, I had a notification come up on my phone. Okay, I thought I had them turned off. Anyhow, turn this up. How's everybody doing? It doesn't look like anybody else is on yet. It is lunchtime. Which is fine. So I'll wait a little bit until we get some folks. Oh, okay, it looks like we got some people logging on. Um, if you could do me a favor, I think I have it set up right this time. Let me know if you can hear me. Just type something in, and then I'll take a peek and see if I can see your notifications. Turn the volume off on that. So, okay. Hopefully, and let me know if notifications from my phone are dinging on there, because I do have them turned off, but I don't know for sure if they're, hopefully you guys can't hear them. So, oh, Emily. Okay, great. You can hear me. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Well, I know it's an odd time of day, and these live demos end up staying on the group, which is great, so people can watch them later at their convenience. And so what I was going to do today was just kind of come on in here and show you how I apply my the thick and thin yarn that we were spinning. I think it was 2 weeks ago that I had done the demo on that. So just going to show you, although a lot of you guys might probably already know this, there might be some beginners out there that are curious as to how it's done. And so I was basically going to cover how and demo how I do the spiral plying. This is from Thick and Thin that was spun from the merino bamboo that I dye. And this one is spun from a bat. So it's a bit chunkier and thicker, which is, I I hadn't done much spinning like that, the thick and thin from the bat. And then doing the coils, I had a lot of fun doing it. I liked how thick and lightweight that it came out. So I'll show you in this bat, there was, oh my goodness. So there was a couple different types of wool. There was some merino here. There is some Angelina in there and some sari silk. So it was really cool to see how that came out while I was doing the spirals on that. So if anybody has any questions, I've got it set up to where I can't see comments. So while I'm going, I'll peek up and see if anybody has any questions. I'll try to answer them the best that I can. And if I don't see them, I will answer them afterwards. So anyways, so I'm here in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm on the West Coast, and I don't know where you guys are from. If you're East Coast, West Coast, let me know. And I think what I'll do is just get started. I had a lot of people ask me about what type of plying yarn or thread do I use. So when I am doing when I'm doing my coils, I will usually use a cone of wool yarn that I have. But disclaimer, I couldn't find it. I've got a couple of them and I couldn't find it because they got moved into another room. So anyhow, those are gone. Oh, in Boston. Okay. And so those being gone, I couldn't find it. My next best thing that I had was I have a couple balls of this merino alpaca. And it's a commercial spun yarn, but it works really good. It's a nice DK weight, which is what I like to use. If you use if you want to do smaller, then of course use a smaller yarn. If you want to do something bigger or thicker, things like this, the alpaca is kind of, hi, Sandy, you're in Alaska. The alpaca is kind of wispy, so you'll see that on there. That helps to grab that fiber when I'm coiling it or spinning it. But if you want to do smaller shells or smaller ones, then of course use a thinner weight. Otherwise, I think a DK weight's great. Probably really good. I like to use mohair if you have it. That's really great for core spinning. But otherwise, this will work. If this doesn't work, any worsted weight yarn will work. As long as it's one that's kind of tough and you can't just pull it apart. Like I was talking to a friend yesterday, sending her some videos on how to do it. And I was telling her that she asked about using her own a handspun single to use as the core for her plying. And I told her, you know, if it was strong enough, she could use it. But in my case, I know the way that I spin that would not be strong enough. I would probably possibly break it. And I wouldn't want to do that midway because it's not the end of the world. You can just tie your ends back together and keep plying. But you know, why stop when you're doing that? And plus that you know, single or that yarn that you spun, it's not going to get seen. This is all going to be hidden. So, that's up to you if you want to use your own hand spun for the ply also. The other kind of plying that you can do with these, most people are familiar with, you can do with the thick and thin, you can do just a regular 2-ply. And what I like to use is, this is my collection of rayon threads. So I have an embroidery machine, sewing machine, and it takes the different colored, or it takes the rayon thread. So that is what this is. This is my collection of just different colors. You can buy it as a kit. You can buy it at, you can also go to fabric stores like Joann's or something like that, and you can buy it by the spool. You can also go to a place online, Amazon, if you wanted, and they sell kits where you can get, you know, all these different colors. So these are what I have. I also did order some other couple of just some gold and silver, which I really like to use. But yeah, so when you ply a thick and thin with this, what it'll end up doing, depending on how tight you pull that, it'll give it a cool little pearl type look. Like, I don't know, I call it pearls, but I guess that's all depends. It looks like, I thought I had some out here pulled. Well, maybe I'll show you how, I'll try to reproduce that on this. But so anyhow, let's get started. I'm going to move the camera down and show you. Oh, here's what I've got. So on Sunday, the afternoon, I pre-spun some yarns. I've got my thick and thin here, merino bamboo, and then I did another one in a carded bat as well. Just to see the difference in how they go. So when you get started, let me angle this down. See if we can get just a good visual on what's happening here, or what will be happening here. Oops. Okay. So I use the country spinner. You guys know that. You can do this on any other wheel as well. Like I said, you're just going to be dependent. You're limited as far as how big the orifice is on your wheel. But I went over that a little bit on my first video, so I'm not going to repeat any of that. So when you get started, what you'll do is attach the core yarn, and you'll attach this, what you're going to be plying, to the leader of here. And you're plying, so you're going to be going in reverse. So when I spin, I go to the right. When I ply, I go counterclockwise and go to the left. And so let's just get to going. This is kind of kinked up. Okay. So I like to keep my hand spun my thick and thin. I try to keep this at more of a 45-degree angle. Let me see if I can go kind of slow. And I'm letting it just basically roll around my core thread. Now I think the problem that most people have, you know, if any with this, is that you build kink up in your thread here, or your yarn that you're playing onto. So the best way I figured out how to do that is to just kind of go slow, and you have to release this at the same time so that twist can build up underneath these coils. It really is just a matter of practice, and you just kind of have to do it over and over. But if you can then push it up a little bit to kind of lock it in, but I like to just let it go over as such. And then you can see there's a little bit of yarn here. And if I do that, it's kind of kinky, right? It's got kinks in it. That's not a problem, because when you set your yarn, whether you soak it, if you do it by a soak, or if you do it with a steamer, which is what I like to do, you'll see that those kinks are going to be gone. I'm trying to figure out which camera what I'm using here. So there we go. So you can see it's not too kinky. You can do it. There's some areas there where some of my yarn was coming through. Um, it was in the darker room when I was doing that. But yeah, you can see that it'll relax. When I steamed it, I had it hanging in my shower, and I did kind of weigh it down a little bit. I just hung something on the bottom to kind of weigh it, to put it under tension. I would suggest when you're spinning your thick and thin, maybe do it a little tighter than what you're used to, because you're kind of unwinding it as you're plying. And then you can push it up here. You can lock this in place if you feel like you need to do that. I haven't found that that's necessary. If you were doing say beehives, or if your thick and thin lengths weren't as close as mine, then you might want to lock it in. But in the end, like I said, when you've set the twist on this, it's going to keep it in place. There's not going to be, it's a tight spin, so you're not going to have loose yarn. If it's loose, it's because you could have scooted it up a little bit closer. But like I said, what has worked best for me over the years is the 45-degree angle. You'll see it, you'll feel it. If the yarn's not quite twisting, you can take this hand, your thumb here, and give it a little twist and help it go on there. Let's see, I want to keep that covered. But the main thing is watching your twist here. That's the problem that my friend was having, was that the twist was building up so much in this hand, and I think she was probably forgetting to kind of loosen up with the tension on this. So you want to loosen up some every now and then, because otherwise, if you don't, you are going to end up with a big kind of a lot of knots. Not knots, but it'll twist up into a big kinky mess. But if you take your time and go nice and slow, you'll see how those come out. And they're really cool. I love the looks of them. But see that little bit of kink? Like I said, when you go to set your yarn, when you put it under tension, it's going to take care of all that. So, I mean, I know that we've all got our own ways of spinning and doing things differently. So I know other folks do it different. And gosh, if there's another shortcut or an easier way to do it, I would love to see how someone else does it or what they do, because I'm always willing to learn. But sometimes just sitting down at the wheel yourself and practicing, and then just doing it over and over. If you have a yarn or a thickened, if you're practicing and you don't want to use your nicer expensive fibers, maybe dig through your pile and see if you can find something that didn't cost as much, that you can play with and ply. The other way that I like to do, so say if I'm plying and it's like it gets too kinked up or something weird goes on, I like to ply and do what I call them stacks. You can hold tension here and then just go back and forth. Back and forth, you can wind that up, and then you get this nice chunky spiral or haystack or whatever you want to call it. I just call it like a stack. I don't know what it's called. But that's kind of fun to throw in the mix every now and then. Make sure it's not too big that it doesn't fit in your orifice, because that would be a bummer to do it and then be like, oh, it's not going to fit. It's not going to work in there. But I'll get going, and then if part of it doesn't ply up as well as I'd like it to, I'll start doing these doubling back, coming forward, bringing it up, and do it a couple times so it doesn't look like it's a mistake. Do it so it looks like it's actually a feature. If you were weaving with this, it would come out really cool. But look at that. See that twist that has built up? So you can take it and kind of floof it out into the rest of the yarn that you've got here. But what you really want to do is just make sure that you're letting that twist kind of gradually go through your fingers and let it go through. So that is basically how I like to do it. I've used this yarn as accents in different pieces, hats usually. I've got a friend that had some of my yarn and she put it on as a little accents around the collar, which was really cool. Oh, Fed. Oh, you're in Holland. Oh, how neat. I just saw that comment. Sorry, I didn't see that earlier. That is someplace I would love to go. I think my sister and I would like to take a trip someday, a special sister's trip. And that would definitely be somewhere that's on our list. Now, I suppose if you didn't want to hold it at an angle, you could try to do the same, but you can't go too far down. If you're holding it like you're plying regularly, feels like it got stuck on here. If you were plying, say, with a rayon thread, ply it like normally. And it all depends on how, if you do it tight, you're going to have this kind of a look, which isn't bad. But if you do it a bit looser, you can just let this kind of tighten up over. I'm getting stuck on the thing. Tighten up over the thick and thin spots. And then you'll see, if this was the rayon thread, you'll see that, and it gives it a nice look as well. It's looser. It still kind of looks like it's a spiral, but it's not exactly. But this makes a really nice, pretty way to ply it as well. And I would just use a like a matching complementary color. With this one, I would probably use purple, but you know, I love this gold color, so I would probably use gold. But you can do it like that. So it's not exactly coils, but it might be a good way to start. If you haven't plied your thick and thin before, this might be a good way to get started. Do that a little bit and just let it go on, kind of working both of them at an angle. And then you can start doing some of your other tighter coils. You can do little tiny ones. If you spin your thick and thin small and you don't, say you're working on a smaller wheel, which is your average orifice size, you can do little ones like this. Still spin your thick and thin, and then you can still do little thick and thins there. But I like to get going. You can go, it takes a lot of yarn to make a small skein of yarn, because you're really plying this so much of this that it's taken up a lot of your yardage. But that's okay. Most people, it's not like you're gonna knit a sweater or one object, you know, one project just out of this type of yarn. I mean, if you were, that would be quite the undertaking, I would think. But yeah, that's what I like to do. It's just basically practice over and over and watching this other hand here, which I suppose I could do it closer. I like, when I'm spinning, I usually like to have my hands back here closer to me, but I know that you could also just do it, if I can do it up closer here. Just let it wrap. A little bit of tension over here, a lot of tension on this end. And then see how it's thinner here? I'm not crazy about that, so I want to do some over plying, double plying, stacking it up. Just hold and keep your tension. Let it roll back and forth. And then start up with your regular coils again. Now I have core spun yarn, and then I plied it. Let me see if I can find a picture of that, or not a picture. Let me see if I can find some of that. I think it was, I might have, it's actually, I think I might have sold it. I should have looked. Oh, wait, here it is. This is it. Okay. So this is this yarn is a one that I core spun. And then after core spinning it, then I went back and then I did the plying and made the little shells with it. So depending on what type of fiber you're using, the yarn, that type of thing, or your core yarn that you're using, it's going to vary based on the looks. But you can do these as big as you want. These are really big ones. And this was just done from a massive thick and thin yarn that I had made. It was huge. And this one's definitely wall hanging worthy, weaving of some sort. I need to do something with it, but actually I kind of just like to let it sit, and I just like to watch it, like to just look at it. Thank you. On this one, this is one of my favorite ones that I've done. So I will probably try to do a scarf, weave a scarf and incorporate that into it. But yeah, that is definitely one of my favorite ones. So it's not much different. Let me see if I can do this. What I'm going to do. Oh, and when you end it, say if you were done, what I do, instead of just finishing right here at this point, because I've got so much twist in here, I will kind of just do a regular ply down a little bit. If I'm feeling very ambitious, I might pull this off. Let me see, this is already done, but I would maybe, I got quite a bit of twist in this, pull that off. And then I would take this piece, you could split it, cut it here, stick it in there, and start spinning, and then just spin this down and around to cover that base. And then you would have a length of yarn here to where it's not going to uncoil necessarily very much. However, what I found too, and some people might disagree, but you can tie a knot in it. You can tie a knot, or you can take the two pieces and tie a knot. And after you steam it, or after you soak it and put it under some tension, it is not going to unravel very much. Let's see if I can show you. Here's the end. Here's one end here. So this is the end. You can see it did unravel a little bit, but not very much. And it's not going to unravel so much that you can't do your project with it, right? So that's not really anything. A lot of people worry about that, but it's not really necessarily an issue. The only time it would maybe be a problem is, say, if you were doing some type of a fancy wall hanging and this was going to be down as fringe, then you would probably want to cut the core, push it through, spin it tight, and then spin you a nice single or a chunky or something of that nature to keep it from unraveling. It just kind of all depends on what type of look that you're interested in. But so this is I'll go ahead and do this one too. I'm not going to take up too much of your guys' time today, but this is from a bat that I had spun. So if I was starting out, get my wheel going. Sometimes I'll spread this a little bit to get it on there, but actually if I just get it twisting, it's going to gather up there. So I like to start out with just kind of a regular, almost core ply type to get it going, because I just want to have a nice good base there that I'm working with. And then I'll start in with my shells. But the bigger, I've got a twist here. I did not set the thick and thin yarn. You can. It's not necessary. But you might end up having to do this. That's why I kind of did it the other day, thinking, oh, it's going to rest on itself and not cause a problem. But should have been a little bit more conscientious about that. Could, however, spin it in there and let it be an element, but I'm not going to do that. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be able to get this out. So untwist. I mean, it is what it is, right? Am I going to get it? Am I going to get a knot? I might get a knot. But if I do, I'm going to hide it. Okay. So I might get a knot. So we're going to do a weird bobble type thing because I don't want to take up so much time to try to figure that out. So let's ply and get on down to that area. So just working at your 45-degree angle. After you do coil your thin part up, that's when you want to push it up there to snug it. That's where most of the kink is on that. I really like how this one came out. I like red and turquoise together. Okay, so here's my problem issue here. I'm gonna wrap it. I'm gonna hide it. Is it gonna look like a big knot? Maybe, maybe not. So now we have this cool design element, and if I push it through, it is going to fit through the orifice. So that's how big the orifice is on these countries. They're huge. Let me help it out some here and get it through so it doesn't get caught up on there. Now this is a pretty relaxing way to spin. Once you get the hang of it, you can do it just by feel. You won't have to keep your eye on it and keep looking down. I only have one bobbin for this spinner. I always thought it was big enough that I didn't really need to have another one. And this is getting stuck over here. Okay. So that's done well. Otherwise, if you have a wheel where you have it on, you can also just leave it on the bobbin, put it on your Lazy Kate, and then just ply it off of there too. That works as well. It's probably better if you have that. When you're trying to ply it, and I've got it just in a ball here, it's at the mercy of whatever it's sitting in. And it's sitting in a what do you want to call it? Like a box made out of material. Fiber box type thingy sitting in my little stand. But yeah, the bigger the plies, the bigger the shells you're going to get. So anyhow, all right. Well, I hope that this helped you guys out if you were interested in trying to use this or do this type of spinning. It all comes down to practice. Sorry, my comments are not staying up here. The core. Oh, I am using, this is a commercial alpaca and wool DK weight. And so it does kind of stick to it a little bit because it's got little fibers sticking out. Normally I have a cone of just merino DK. or a Targi DK